Hello and welcome to another Spectrum Geeks video. My name is Dale, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about the MyEnergi Zappi version 2 or generation 2. It's what I've decided to go for again at my new house. So I thought I'd do an unboxing, show you how it gets installed and give you my thoughts on how the Gen 2 Zappi works compared to the original version 1 I had at my old house. Okay, so when you order a MyEnergi Zappi, it's most likely going to come with the installer and they're going to install it for you on the day. What I'm doing is I've purchased this myself, and the installer that installed my Gen 1 Zappi is going to come and install this for me separately. So I thought I'd give an opportunity to unbox it, show you what comes in the box, talk to you a little bit about the installation and the specs of the MyEnergi Zappi, because perhaps you're considering buying an electrical vehicle charger, and I still think, solar or no solar, the MyEnergi Zappi is still one of the best chargers on the market. And if you do have solar or you're planning on having solar, I still think that there's not really too much that beats it at the time of doing this video, hence me going from a Gen 1 Zappi and now to the Gen 2 Zappi. So in terms of the Zappi, before we unbox it, I'll talk to you a little bit about the specs of it and the different options that you have. So you can get two different versions of the Gen 2 Zappi. One is for single phase, which is most common at most houses, so 32 amps and 7 kilowatts charging capability, or you can get the three phase model, which is 22 kilowatts maximum charging capability. So you're going to have one or the two, and then depending on which one you go for, you're going to have the option of a tethered or non-tethered version and a black or a white version. I personally have gone for the black version and the tethered version. So the tethered version, you get 6.5 meters of charging cable connected up to the connector to plug into your car. Many people, I think, consider going for an untethered version because it does look neater on the front of your property. But once you've had an electric car for a while and it's absolutely lashing it down with the rain, like it is most of the time in the UK, the last thing you want to be doing is getting your charging cable out of your front or your trunk or your boot, whatever you want to call it, and basically connecting it up in the rain, and then in the morning when it's raining having to do the same thing again. So if you get caught short somewhere, you can have your charging cable with you. So I still recommend get the tethered version if you're going to get one, but yeah, that's what I've decided to go for. So a couple of reasons why you might want the Zappi as well, compared to some of the other chargers on the market where you have to have a separate pen fault device. The Zappi Gen 2 has this already on board, so you don't need an earth rod or anything like that, which I had to have with my Gen 1 Zappi. So it's got a 30 milliamp Type A RCD on board, and also a 6 milliamp DC protection circuits on there as well. And again, the other reasons why you might want to consider a Zappi over some of the others is that it has timer capability, which they call boost in the MyEnergi world. So if your car doesn't have a timer capability on it, you can time when you want your charging to happen on your Zappi, which is perfect if you're on something like Octopus Go, you want to do off-peak charging. Also have access to an app so you can manage the charging and view what's going on. The app could do with being updated in my opinion, but you know, it is what it is. But there is an app available. As I mentioned before, if you have solar, you can automatically set it up to divert any of your charging just from using solar surplus. These ones have also the built-in hub, so you don't have to buy a separate hub to basically make your charger smart. It does come with one CT clamp, which we'll look at when we unbox it, which you connect to your grid supply. But as with other videos, you'll see I use the MyEnergi Harvey, so I can have wireless CT clamps set up for myself. And finally, it does have a pin code protection as well that you can set up. So you can set a 5-digit pin. So if you have, I guess, an easily accessible driveway, you know, someone just rocking up and stealing your charge, then that's something else that you can set up on this as well. So let's unbox it, show you what's inside, talk to you a little about the installation, and then once my electrician's here to install, we'll look at what it's like and how I think it compares to the original Gen 1 Zappi. Okay, so let's open the box and see what we have inside. So you have a little bit of information about support, phone numbers and email addresses for MyEnergi. There's also a forum that you can go on if you want to get some more help and support. Another reason why I've gone for MyEnergi is I've only ever had one issue with my Gen 1 Zappi, and that was the faceplate letting some water in, and they just replaced it free of charge, and that was a couple of years after. I think it was even out of warranty. So information for getting support, and then it also comes with this template that basically you can put on the wall as to where you want it. Drill one hole at the top, and then if you're using masonry fixings, then you just drill a hole either side here, and then if you have basically a wooden structure or a frame support, you can then use these middle ones as well. And then this larger hole is showing you basically where the cord is going to go if you're going to come in from the rear as opposed to from underneath. So personally, I'm going for a rear mounted wire, so I use the top and the side two here, and then a larger hole for my 6mm cable to come in the back there. Also gives you a bit of information about height, so they recommend installing it 1.2 to 1.4 meters above the floor height. Okay, next inside we got a bit of information about the V hub, so the virtual hub and Wi-Fi module that's built in to the latest generation of the Zappi Generation 2. So again, a little bit of side reading that we can do here. Talks you through how you can basically connect to your Wi-Fi network, and we'll look at that a little bit later. Serial number and product registration information, also where you can download the MyEnergi app and register your device, and I've also got my receipt and things in here as well. So all the information that you or your installer is going to need to get this all set up. Also then in the box we have this little bag. This comes with the rule plugs, the washers and the screws you're going to want to use. The important thing about these actually is, let's see where it is in here. Inside are these metal and rubber washers. You want to make sure that you're using these correctly when mounting your Zappi to the wall. This is to make sure that you maintain the IP65 waterproof rating. Obviously the rating is only as good as the weakest point, so use the fittings that are supplied, and also when using the can't remember what call it, not the gasket, the connector. I'll do a little overlay. Make sure that's obviously IP65 rated as well for where the wire comes in from the back or the underside into the Zappi. And also if you're using a flat cable, so if your cables are running interior, you probably have a flat cable for your electrician. Make sure they've used an additional grommet there that's supported for the flat cable, and I'll show you an example of that in the overlay as well. Okay, then we also have a CT clamp, so a current transformer. You just get one of these supplied, which again you connect up to your grid connection so that the Zappi knows what grid usage you're using. If you want to have one connected up for solar and for your battery, you need to add those separately and wire them in either to the back of your Zappi or into your Harvey if you're going to use CT wireless CT clamps. These cost about £15 each, and if the wiring isn't close to your electrical closet, that's fine. You can extend it with a Cat 6 cable, just using a couple of the pairs on there up to 100 meters. So again, you get one CT clamp in the box as well. Then obviously we have the front bit of the Zappi, so that's the black fascia. So you can obviously have black or white depending on what colors you've gone for. And then lastly we have the Zappi itself, which I'll get out of the box and put on here, and then the kind of bracket. So if you have the tethered version like I have, that enables you to run the cable around. So let me move the box out of the way, get the Zappi up here on the sofa, and then we can take a closer look. Okay, so this is the Zappi V2 out of the box. So again, the fascia just clips on, but we're going to leave that for now because I have to take the front of it off to do the wiring install. And then the plug basically just connects into the front here, and you push to release it. And then on the back there are 1, 2, 3, 4 holes here, and that's where this bracket just needs to be attached with the screws provided to give you somewhere to wrap the cables around. And then again, your installer is going to want to drill a hole in the back of here to terminate the electrical cable, or alternatively they will drill somewhere in the bottom here again to be able to connect that up. And obviously these are the holes that we're going to come through from the inside to get everything wired up. So let's pop the front of the faceplate off and show you what it looks like inside the Zappi. Okay, so to get the front fascia off, you've got 8 Phillips head screws that you need to remove. Now when you come to take the front off, do it gently. There is a ribbon cable that connects the front panel to the rear, so just be delicate with it. Obviously there is a seal around the outside, so you need to be careful with that as well, not to lose it. So you can put it back in the right position as well. So the ribbon cable you just disconnect from the far side. And again, I'll show you that once we've taken this out. Okay, so here's the back, here's the seal that we want to make sure we don't lose, and put that back in place. And this is where that connects back up as well. And if you're going to be using non-wireless, so you have a network port nearby, you have an RJ45 Ethernet connector just on the board there as well. But you can see here is the wireless module and the little wireless antenna connecting just there. Okay, and you can see on the inside here, a bit of silica gel already. Keep that in your toolbox, stops your tools getting all kind of moistury and what have you. But if we look inside here, we can see a few things. Here we have CT 1, 2 and 3. These are where we wire our CT clamps to. The one that comes with it, like I said, you're going to wire that to CT1, or if you're not using the Zappi, you're going to connect CT1 to CT1 on your Harvey. But you don't want to use the CT inputs on the device as well as the Harvey, because it will basically cause a conflict. So you wire those in just there. And here we have our live, neutral and earth points for basically the mains connection to come through. So again, your electricians are either going to drill a hole here, pull the cables up into here, or they're going to drill a hole in the underside and come up into here, but definitely not coming in from the top. So again, as I mentioned, make sure the gland is IP65 compliant as well. It's not just simply just full of silicon, and that will be good to go. So I think they are push fit actually into there, which makes installation just that little bit easier as well. So that shows you what the inside of the Zappi is like. Wait for my electrician to come, hopefully later on in the week, get this all installed, and then we'll come back and I'll talk to you a little bit about how the Zappi works. It's 3 different charging modes, a little bit about the timers, and tell you what I think of it compared to the Gen 1. I think in general everything's pretty much the same, just a few improvements, and I definitely prefer the Gen 2 aesthetic over the Gen 1. Okay, so welcome back. As you can see, it's been about maybe just over a week, but the Zappi is installed. So I thought I'd talk to you about the little experience that I've had. I've only used it twice for charging so far. Obviously, as I mentioned, pretty much similar to the Gen 1. You can see here there's a little pink light on, say it's not charging at the moment, it is in standby mode. Use about 3 watts when it's in standby, but as you can see it's currently plugged in to my Polestar 2. So let me unplug the car, wrap things back up, and then let's look at the Zappi in a bit more detail, talk to you about how it gets set up and what my charging experience has been so far. Apologies for background noise and wind and everything, it's freezing cold, and yeah, it's wrapped up and then get back inside in the warm. Okay, so all wrapped up again, and it's really much better with the Gen 2 in terms of with the tethered unit, the holster for that front plug. On the Gen 1 you had like a side holster that was attached to the wall. This is much neater and actually goes in and out a lot easier. That's one of the complaints my wife had, sometimes difficult to get the plug in and out in the morning and the evening. So before we zoom in on the menu screen, once you've got it all plugged in and set up, you're obviously going to connect it to your hub. I have different videos on how to kind of set things up for the hub and do the pairing, so feel free to check those out. The main difference with this one is it has built-in Wi-Fi, so there is a Wi-Fi option that when you go into it, you connect to it on your phone. It opens up a little HTTP browser, so that proxy must run on there locally, that you then connect to the device from your phone, and from there you set the wireless network and the wireless password that you're connecting to at home. So pretty straightforward. I don't really have that easily to pop up and show there because I don't want to show serial numbers and passwords, but there's basically a password that shows up on the screen, and yeah, it all works nice and simply. So let me reposition the camera. I'll show you a little bit about the menu screen and a little bit more details about the Zappi close up, and then we will wrap this video up. Okay, so I'm hoping you're able to see the screen well enough. It is a little bit bright, it's south facing, so there's a little bit of reflection on the screen. So right now I have 2 CT clamps connected, one to the grid, which is what you have to have, and here it shows 0.0 kilowatts coming in from the grid. That's because we're currently running from battery, but if you're importing anything, that will show up just here. You will also have information here about what your house is using if you also had the CT clamp for solar, which I don't have at the moment. So I have a CT clamp on the grid connection and a CT clamp on the battery, which again we're going into a bit more detail at the moment. This isn't necessarily a requirement if you do have a battery, but if you do have a battery, I recommend fitting the CT clamp so you can minimize any chances of draining the battery when charging. So we also have the date and the time, and then the mode that we're in, and then information in terms of where we last charged. So last night I put 29.8 kilowatt hours of energy in. None of it was green, it was all from the grid, and the EV is currently disconnected. We use these up and down buttons to change the charging mode. Another thing I really like about the Gen 2 Zappi is you can set a default as to when it gets power again, what mode it starts up in. On the old one it would always start up in fast mode, which meant if you had a power cut overnight, as soon as the power came back on, your car would start charging, which you didn't always want. So Eco Plus mode basically means it's not going to charge at all unless you have any surplus coming from your solar, or you are using the boost timer. So for me, in between midnight and 4:30 in the morning on Octopus Go, I use my off-peak tariff to do my charging. But you press these buttons to change from Eco Plus into Eco, and then to fast, and then into stopped. So obviously in stopped mode it doesn't do any charging at all. As you mentioned before, Eco Plus is using only surplus solar or your boost timers. In eco mode it will charge the car at 1.4 kilowatts, or kilowatts, regardless whether there's any surplus solar or anything. And then again, when you hit your boost timers, it will go back up to full fast charging. And then on fast, obviously it's fast, so 7 kilowatts, 32 amps. You can vary the ampage, I think from 6 amps up to 32 amps. So if you have a single phase supply, and perhaps you've got 2 Zappis and you're trying to charge 2 cars, you might set it to 15 or 16 amps to manage your charging there. So again, I just leave mine in Eco Plus all the time. As you saw earlier, when the car is plugged in but not charging, this is pink, and when it is plugged in and charging, this turns green. It looks pretty damn cool. You press this button to get into the menu screens. Here we can see a charging log. Again, this information is also available in the app. So if we look at this morning, 29.8 kilowatt hours at 100% from the grid, and it charged for 5 hours, 10 minutes and 50 seconds last night. I was a bit worried about, due to the new charging regulations that mean the charge may be delayed up to 10 minutes. I hadn't experienced any of that issues myself, and the reason this is 5 hours 10 minutes instead of just 4 hours, I was doing some testing in terms of master slave configuration, which is why I have that. If you go into the event log, that just shows you any issues in terms of reboots or anything. If you go into readings, obviously you can see right now EV disconnected. We can see I'm importing 36 watts from the grid. This is basically just for balancing when you have a battery. Currently see it's 22 degrees centigrade inside the unit. You go through different screens, again voltage information, and here on screen 4 we can see that where the CT clamp I have for my battery, it is seeing that I've got 484 watts coming in from my battery, and that is important again to try and avoid drain. Other information you can see here, again just serial numbers, information like that. any linked devices that we have. So again, I have a Zappi, an Eddy, a Harvey, and then the V hub running on my Eddy. So all these devices can talk to each other and can see them in the app. And then if we go down to charge settings, this is where you might want to make a couple of configuration changes. So eco settings, again, minimal levels for green charge or anything. I pretty much leave all of that as standard. You won't really have any issues. Go to manual boost. That obviously can charge your car to a specific amount of kilowatt hours. Again, I don't use that one. I use the boost timer. We have smart boost on here as well. So if you need a certain amount of energy for a certain time, you can use the smart boost. But I used the boost timer. So you can see here, starting at midnight, running for 4 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. It will do that charging for me as long as the car is plugged in. And then preconditioning, this is off by default, but I've set preconditioning to on and supply a maximum charge or power supply of 1.5 kilowatt hours. So if in the morning I want to run the heaters or anything and the car's still plugged in, it will precondition from the grid or from my battery, depending on the setup, instead of using the battery on the car. And then I've said default mode, Eco Plus, you can change that if you want to. And then really the other thing I think it's important to look at, you can obviously do date and time settings, everything in here. It's now much easier to download and update the firmware. Before you used to have to go into the bootloader, etc. Now you can just see all of that from this screen. And I noticed the performance of the whole unit is much better, as well as the speed it can do the downloads and the updates. You can go into the internet connection, where you can have, again, Wi-Fi or Ethernet connection and get information about that. And then finally, if we go into the advanced menu, you have to press the plus button 4 times. So default is 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3 in there. And the only other thing really to make sure is if you are using the CT clamps of the device itself, you go into CT configuration and you'd have CT1 set to grid. I'm using the Harvey, so it's important I make sure none of the CT clamps are trying to work on this one, because there are no CT clamps connected into the back. And the only other thing probably worth mentioning to you, again, you can set up passcodes, etc., but supply grid is the other one. Especially if you had a battery, you want to go into network and you want to set an export margin of 50 watts and battery and set it to avoid drain, and that will minimize the Zappi using any energy from your battery to charge your car, unless you force it to into fast mode. But in eco mode or Eco Plus mode, it will not drain the battery. Okay, so I hope you found this video helpful. As I mentioned before, I still think the Zappi from MyEnergi is one of the best, if not the best, charger on the market right now, and really for a couple of reasons. One, if you've got solar, it seamlessly integrates to your solar system to charge your electric vehicle with surplus solar. Second, there is an app. Most of them obviously all have an app these days, which is great. The app isn't brilliant, but continues to get some form of updates over time. But I like the fact that you also have the physical buttons on there. So if you have an internet outage or the app stops working, or if in the future there is an issue with the company, I don't think so. MyEnergi seems to be very well established and well funded. But if for some reason MyEnergi did go out of business, you still have the ability to be able to control all the charging and the parameters from the device itself, as opposed to things like Hypervolt, etc., where you can only configure things on the app. So if the company ever goes out of business, then you have a problem. So I hope this video helped. Please like if you have done, subscribe if you haven't done already, check out other videos on the channel, and until the next video, take care of yourself and goodbye for now.